Have you ever used the word regardless with somebody? Typically when you say that to someone, what you're typically saying is, look, it doesn't matter what you do, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And what you decide to do is going to have no weight on my decision. And I was reading my Bible the other day, and I was reading this story, and it's actually a fairly crazy, weird story. And it goes back to Genesis, and it's this moment when God actually makes his covenant promise with Abraham. And the way we read it in Genesis is God is making a covenant with Abraham, and the way a covenant works, where both parties had to keep up their end of the deal for the covenant to work, for the covenant to not go null and void. Both parties had to keep up their end of the deal. So God's making this covenantal promise with Abraham, but what he does is he causes Abraham to fall into a deep sleep. And you're reading the story and you're like, that's so weird. Why would God have Abraham fall asleep when he's trying to make a covenant promise with him? And the reason he does this is because God knows that Abraham is incapable of keeping up his end of the deal of the covenant. And so what he does is he has Abraham fall asleep, and then basically God makes a promise with himself on behalf of Abraham. So God knows that he is perfect and that he will not keep up the end of the deal, his end of the deal. So God has his side of the promise, and then he goes to Abraham. He's like, I'm going to make a promise with myself on behalf of you because you're not capable of keeping up your end of the deal. And it's this beautiful picture, this beautiful word pops up in there, and it is regardless, that God says, look, I'm going to be faithful and I'm going to keep my promises regardless if you're able to keep up your end of the deal, Abraham, because the reality is I actually already know you won't be able to keep up your end of the deal. And this word regardless is such a beautiful thing. And regardless is where we get grace from. That God said even to Abraham, look, I'm going to save the world through your descendant. And that descendant was Jesus. And Jesus comes regardless if the world deserved him or not. Regardless if the world was going to see Jesus as the true king, he was going to come and sacrifice himself for the world, regardless if we could keep up our end of the deal or not. And that's such a beautiful thing as we look at our own lives, and we even can look at things like this last year, like 2020, and we can look at it as such loss for so many people, or we can look at it as such difficulty for so many people. And for so many people, we may be even going, God, where are you in all of this? You're not here anymore. But the truth is, regardless if you see God at work or not, God is at work because he promises to be at work in the life of the believer. Jesus tells this parable of a farmer that goes out and he throws all this seed down, and then he goes to bed. And what does the seed do? It grows. The farmer goes to the market. He leaves the seed in the dirt. And what does the seed do while the farmer's gone? It grows. It grows regardless of what the farmer is doing. God grows the seed. And God is at work in your life and in my life, regardless if we see him or not. And for the believer even, regardless if we're being faithful completely to him, that he loves us regardless of our response back to him. And we receive grace regardless if we deserve grace or not. And that is such a beautiful thing. And that is such a freeing thing. And that is such peace in our lives. Now, of course, we do want to strive to honor God, to desire him and to desire his things. But you need to know this today, that Jesus loves you regardless of what you did yesterday or what you did last night. That today his mercies are new for you, and that regardless, he will be faithful.